In the early 1970s, the future of a big shipping company depended on one man. It depended on his company's last $5,000 and a risky weekend in Las Vegas. This is the amazing story of how that company, FedEx, began. Fred Smith, the man who started FedEx, had a hard beginning. When he was 4 years old, his father died. For the first 10 years of his life, Fred had a disease that hurt his hips. He could not walk well and had to use leg braces and crutches. Other children sometimes made fun of him, but by his 10th birthday, Fred got better. He could walk again. Soon he found a love for flying. This love would be very important for his future. Later, Fred went to Yale University to study economics. In his 3rd year, he wrote a paper for a class. In this paper, Fred shared a new business idea. He thought it could change how packages moved across the country. At that time, packages traveled on regular passenger planes. This made delivery slow and often unpredictable. Fred's idea was different. He wanted to buy his own small planes. These planes would fly at night when airports were not busy. All packages would go to one main place, a central hub, to be sorted. From there, trucks would take them to their final stops. Fred believed this system could deliver packages in just 1 or 2 days. This was much faster than anyone else could do. Fred was excited about his idea, but his professor did not like it. The professor said the idea was not possible and would not work, so Fred only got a C grade on his paper. Fred felt very disappointed, but he still believed his idea had great potential. He wanted to prove his professor wrong. After Yale, Fred joined the U.S. Marine Corps. He served 3 years in the Vietnam War as a navigator. His life was often in danger. During his time in the military, Fred learned 2 important things. First, he saw how the military moved supplies and thought of ways to make it better. Second, in his free time, he often played blackjack. He became very good at the game. Fred did not know it then, but this game would later save his entire company. When Fred came back from the war in 1970, he was tired of destruction. He wanted to build something useful and good. He had only a C-grade college paper and a wild idea. How could he possibly turn that into a real business? 2. A new idea. Fred Smith came back from the war. He did not want to destroy things anymore. He wanted to build something. At 26, Fred started working for his father-in-law's company, Arkansas Aviation Sales. He soon bought a big part of the company. Fred changed the business. It used to fix airplanes, but Fred made it sell airplanes more. This helped the company make more money. But Fred was not happy with one thing: how slowly parts arrived. It took too much time to get airplane parts from one place to another. This problem reminded Fred of his old idea from college. He believed packages could be delivered across the country in just 1 day. This was his hub-and-spoke system. Planes would fly packages to one main sorting center at night. From there, trucks would take the packages to their final stops. This system would be much faster because it did not depend on passenger planes. Fred knew he needed many planes to start. He did not have enough money, even with his family's wealth. So, Fred started talking to investors. These were people who put money into new businesses. Fred knew a lot about airlines, and the investors liked his plan. They saw that this idea could make a lot of money. By 1972, Fred got about $91 million in loans and money from investors. This was a huge amount. Fred had a big plan. He wanted to start by moving checks. In those days, sending money by check was very slow. It could take 10 days. Fred talked to the Federal Reserve, America's main banking system. He told them his system could move checks in 24 hours. The Federal Reserve liked this idea and agreed to a deal. Because of this deal with the Federal Reserve, Fred named his new company Federal Express. The future looked bright. Then something unexpected happened. The Federal Reserve suddenly said they would not do the deal anymore. Fred had already bought planes and had big bills to pay. He also had a company name that was for a client he no longer had. This was a very big problem. Even with this big setback, Fred did not give up. He decided to ship small, urgent packages for other businesses and people. On April 17, 1973, Federal Express started its work. That first night, 14 planes delivered 186 packages to 25 cities in the United States. It was a small beginning. But Fred did not know that a much bigger problem for the whole world was starting. This problem would soon make the Federal Reserve's change of mind seem like a small thing. 3. Big problems. The optimism from Federal Express's launch quickly ended due to the 1973 oil crisis. Middle Eastern countries stopped selling oil to the U.S., causing fuel prices to quadruple. This severely hurt Fred Smith's new company, as his planes needed expensive fuel to operate. Federal Express began losing around $30,000 every day. In just over 2 years, Fred Smith's company lost $29 million. Investors refused more funding, given the unstable oil prices. Fred grew desperate. He asked loyal employees to delay cashing paychecks. Pilots and drivers showed remarkable loyalty, even using personal credit cards for jet fuel. Fred himself stopped taking salary from the company. Still, it was not enough. The company was in deep trouble. One Friday, Federal Express had only $5,000 left in its bank account. Then Fred received a $24,000 fuel bill due by Monday. Bankruptcy seemed certain. Fred made a last attempt to secure an investment from General Dynamics. He presented his case, but General Dynamics rejected his offer, finding the situation too risky. Without this crucial funding, Fred could not pay the fuel bill, and his business seemed finished. Defeated, Fred sat at Chicago Airport. He thought sadly about jobs lost and his dream ending. He knew he had to fly back to Memphis and tell his team the planes could not fly on Monday. For a moment, Fred felt completely beaten. Yet he decided to fight. He vowed to get the necessary money himself if no one else would help. His flight to Memphis was about to board. At the last moment, Fred changed his mind. He did not go home. Instead, he took the final $5,000 from the company's account, booked a new flight, and headed to Las Vegas. 4. The Big Bet. Fred Smith did not go back to Memphis. Instead, he made a very risky choice. He flew to Las Vegas. He took the company's last $5,000 from the bank. He decided to bet it all on a card game to save his business. So, the future of Federal Express depended on Fred's weekend in Las Vegas. He went straight to the blackjack tables. Fred was good at blackjack. He learned this skill when he was in the military, playing in his free time. In the 1970s, some blackjack games used only one deck of cards. This made it easier to guess which cards would come next, giving Fred a small advantage. But even with skill, it was still a game of luck. Fred's money went up and down. He would win a few hands, then lose a few. This was very stressful. It was not just money he was playing for. It was his whole company, his dream, and the jobs of all his workers. Could luck at a card table really save a company worth millions? Fred stayed focused. He played hand after hand. At one point, he had $35,000. He felt very strong. But then he started to lose. His confidence went down as his money quickly dropped. Luckily, he stopped at the right time. By the end of the weekend, Fred had turned the $5,000 into $27,000. This amount was enough to pay the big fuel bill due on Monday. It was enough to keep the planes flying for one more week. Fred had saved the company from ending right then. He put the money in the company's bank account and went home. $27,000 would not save the company forever, but it bought Fred and Federal Express a little more time to find a bigger plan. 5. A new start. When Fred came back, his team at Federal Express was truly surprised. They learned that Fred had taken the company's last $5,000 and had gambled it in Las Vegas. His leaders were in shock. However, Fred explained his choice. He said that without money for fuel, the company would have to close its doors anyway. He felt there was nothing more to lose. This bold action, even though it was very risky, actually helped the company. It showed Fred's strong will to save his business. This willingness impressed some investors. They saw how much Fred believed in his company and that he would do anything for its success. This gave him new trust with them. In just a few weeks, Fred successfully got $11 million in new funding from these investors. This large amount of money finally made Federal Express stable. In 1976, the company had its first year of profit. During these difficult 1970s, most other airlines and shipping companies were very careful. They cut their costs and spent less money. But Fred decided to do the opposite. He saw it as a good time for Federal Express to try harder. The company started big advertising campaigns. One famous campaign was called Absolutely, Positively Overnight. Federal Express spent much more money on advertising than its rivals. This big effort helped more people know about Federal Express and its fast delivery service. It built a stronger brand for the company. Federal Express did not try to compete with bigger companies directly. Instead, Fred looked for new places where others were not strong. They decided to focus on smaller cities at first. In these smaller cities, there was not much competition. Big airlines usually did not send cargo there. This smart move helped Federal Express create a new market. They reached many new customers who needed fast shipping. By 1976, Federal Express moved 19,000 packages every single day. Soon, big businesses like IBM and even the U.S. Air Force began to use Federal Express for their important shipments. Federal Express was finally stable and growing very quickly. It seemed like nothing could stop them. But a new big problem was waiting. A government law was still active. This law prevented them from using larger planes. This limit meant Federal Express could not expand its business as much as Fred wanted. It was a hidden problem that could stop their growth forever. 6. A fight in Washington. In the late 1970s, many companies wanted to ship packages by air. But a big problem stopped them: old government rules. These were called airline transport regulations. They protected big passenger airlines. These major airlines had a special right. They could carry large, heavy goods on their planes. This gave them a monopoly, meaning they had almost all the business. Smaller cargo companies like FedEx found it hard to compete. FedEx had a major restriction. Its planes could not carry more than 7,500 pounds of cargo. This meant Fred Smith could only use small aircraft. This small size limited how many packages FedEx could carry each night. It also stopped them from reaching new places. This rule was a big roadblock for the company's growth. Fred believed that if this weight limit was removed, FedEx could use much larger jets. This would help the company grow much faster and serve many more customers. The potential was huge. Fred decided to face this challenge head-on. The main problem was no longer money or other shipping companies. It was the U.S. government itself. Fred made a very bold move. He decided to work with his direct rivals. FedEx and other small cargo carriers formed a group. They all shared the same goal: to change the unfair laws. This unusual partnership aimed to open up the sky for everyone. For several years, this alliance worked hard in Washington, D.C. They spoke to members of Congress and to President Jimmy Carter. They asked the government to remove the old rules. This process was called deregulation. They showed that these old laws stopped fair competition and slowed down progress in the shipping industry. They wanted the freedom to offer better and faster services to businesses and people across the country. Finally, their effort paid off. In 1978, President Jimmy Carter signed a very important new law. It was called the Airline Deregulation Act. This law removed the weight limits for cargo planes. Now, companies like FedEx could buy and use much bigger aircraft, like large Boeing jets. This gave them the chance to truly compete with the large passenger airlines. With this new freedom, there was no limit to how much Fred Smith could expand FedEx. The company was no longer held back by old government rules. The sky was literally the limit for FedEx's growth. But now that these big changes were made, what would Fred Smith do as his very first move to use this new freedom and make FedEx even bigger? 7. Going global. With the new rules from Washington, FedEx could grow freely. Fred Smith quickly took the company public on the stock market in 1978. This IPO was a big step. It helped FedEx raise a lot more money for its next moves. With these funds, Fred bought many bigger airplanes, like Boeing 727s. This helped the company grow very fast. FedEx quickly expanded its operations. In 1981, the company opened its first world hub in Memphis. This large sorting center became known as the Super Hub. It helped FedEx become the biggest air freight company in the United States. The company's money situation also became very strong. By 1983, FedEx reached $1 billion in sales for the first time, showing huge success. The company's vision went beyond the U.S. In 1984, FedEx started shipping goods to other countries, beginning with Europe and Asia. By the end of the 1980s, FedEx worked in 90 countries around the world. To get stronger, the company even bought other international shipping businesses. A major technology change came in the 1990s. FedEx was the first company to let customers track their own packages online using the Internet. Before this, tracking was slow. This new feature made customers feel more connected to their shipments. It set a new standard for all delivery services. By the end of the 1990s, FedEx was the #1 overnight shipper in the world. This great success, however, also brought challenges. Other large companies like UPS saw FedEx's successful way of doing business. They started to copy its methods and compete directly. Being the leader was amazing, but staying #1 would be the hardest fight. How would FedEx defend its big global business against these new, powerful rivals? 8. The FedEx Empire. FedEx was #1 in the world for shipping. But being #1 means others want to be #1 too. Many new competitors started to copy FedEx's successful way of doing business. So, FedEx needed a new plan to stay ahead. The company's new strategy was called vertical integration. This means FedEx decided to own more parts of the shipping and business process. They did not just want to deliver packages. They wanted to offer many different services related to logistics. To do this, FedEx began to buy other companies. One big example was the purchase of Kinko's in 2004. Kinko's was a company that offered printing and business services. FedEx paid $2.4 billion for it. With Kinko's, FedEx could help customers not only ship their documents but also print them. This changed FedEx from a simple delivery service to a company that could help businesses with many needs. They bought other companies too, like those for customs and logistics. This made FedEx a full-service provider. Today, FedEx is a huge company, much bigger than its early days. It employs over 500,000 people around the world. It has hundreds of planes, making it one of the largest airlines in the world. Millions of packages are delivered every day. FedEx ships to almost every country. This giant company started with a small idea from Fred Smith. His college professor gave him a C grade for the idea, saying it would not work. Later, the company faced big money problems. Fred even gambled the company's last $5,000 in Las Vegas to keep it alive for one more week. From that risky bet and a wild idea, Fred built a global empire. He proved his professor wrong. What part of Fred Smith's journey do you find most surprising?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.